إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. قال الله تعالى in Surah Imran, the ayah Mia واثنين, the 102nd ayah. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. And in Surah Nisa, in the first ayah, قال الله تعالى يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله عليكم رقيبا. And in Surah Ahzab, the 33rd surah, in the 70th and the 71st ayats, قال تعالى يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم يغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله قد فاز فوزا عظيما. فاصدق الحديث كتاب الله تعالى وأحسن الهدي وهدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة, which we know to be the best day of the country to believers. Yesterday was Salatul Eid and the ending of the blessed visitor being with us. And it will be a year before the blessed visitor, Shahr Ramadan, is back with us. As the Prophet taught, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, amongst other things that will happen on Yom Qiyamah, the Quran and Ramadan will testify for us or against us. And in terms of Ramadan, that the month will say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the things that may not have happened, it was because he gave up his food, he or her. They gave up their sleep to make ibadah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so it would be the positive aspect of it. One of the shayukh he happens to be from Saudi Arabia. For me, it doesn't make a difference that he's from Saudi Arabia or not. It's just the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed him with a considerable amount of knowledge. One of the leading scholars of our time. His name is Sheikh Saleh Al Fawzan. And he gave a talk in which he said certain things about this fast, and it hadn't come to the end of the month. You know, if you've done good during this month, then continue to do good until its end. And if we were speaking to be negligent, then seek Allah's repentance, and for the remaining days, do the best that you can to observe what it is that needs to be observed. He also reminded that indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all-forgiving and the most merciful. And he quoted from the Quran and said, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying that the only ones who despair of Allah's forgiveness are those amongst the disbelievers, are those who disbelieve. Because in one sense, they never think about seeking Allah's forgiveness. And in doing so, but in being Muslim and having submitted and said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, that it's not for the believer to despair about receiving Allah's mercy. Because Allah has stated in the Quran, the only ones to despair in receiving His mercy are those who don't believe in Him and who have not submitted to Him. And so then the other thing that he said was, don't think, subhanAllah, that if you recognize that we have done good during this month of Ramadan, don't become complacent and don't become arrogant. Don't think that in what we've done during this month in terms of ibadah, as such, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala needed it. Because He didn't, and He doesn't. Anything that we did during this month, for which we receive the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is for our benefit. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being Rabbil Alameen, being the creator of any and all things, the seen and the unseen, He needs nothing from us at all. The month of Ramadan is there for our benefit. There's nothing that we can give Allah to benefit Him in any way, shape, form, or fashion at all. None. And if there are any from amongst us, maybe not us gathered here, who think that there is, then there's something wrong there in terms of their iman and their understanding of when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He's the creator of the heavens and the earth, everything in between, the seen and the unseen. So there's nothing that we can give Allah that He needs. He's self-sufficient. We are. Sheikh Fawzan went on to say something that about the Sahaba. And he said, some of the Sahaba, although in what he said, he mentioned the word Salaf. And of course, the Salaf Salih, the Sahaba, the righteous predecessors. And what he said was, some of them would say, if they knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted one iota of the ibadah that they put forth, that they would pray for death. Not because they wanted death, but because if they knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had accepted one iota of what they had put forth, they would want the circumstance to end there so they could appear before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that condition. So yesterday, the young brother who gave a khutbah, Jazakallahu khairan, may Allah bless him well for what he said. Part of his khutbah, he took from Surah As-Saff, which is the 61st surah in the Quran, and the second ayat. That surah starts, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Sabaha lillahi ma fis samawati wa ma fil ard, wa huwal azizul hakim. Indeed, everything in the heavens and the earth praises Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He is the all-powerful and the most wise. And then the ayat that he used, Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu, bima taquluna ma la taf'alun. O you who believe, why do you say that which you will not do? In specifics, this second ayat was revealed as the Muslims were preparing to engage the non-believers. And some of them, from amongst the companions, began to brag and talk about what they were going to do when they came in contact with the pagans. And here, this ayah was revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu lima taquluna ma la taf'alun. O you who believe, why do you say that which you will not do? So in the context of saying, don't boast, don't show the arrogance, don't show the pride, because of the things that you're saying that you will do, you may not do. for whatever the reasons may happen to be. But in today's khutbah, it's the ayat that comes after that I want to pay attention to. In some circumstances, because of certain things that exist, both here and away from here. So again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Sabaha lillahi ma fis samawati wa ma fil ard wa huwa al-azizul hakim." Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu lima taquluna ma la taf'alun. Kabura maqtan inda Allah an taqulu ma la taf'alun. Indeed, Allah has great anger when you say that which you will not do. Indeed, Allah has great anger when you say that which you will not do. So to repeat again, Sabaha lillahi ma fis samawati wa ma fil ard wa huwa al-azizul hakim. Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu lima taquluna ma la taf'alun. Kabura maqtan inda Allahi an taqulu ma la taf'alun. Inna Allaha yuhibbu alladhina yuqatiluna fi sabilihi bi'annahum bunyanun marsus. Indeed, Allah loves those who fight in His way as if they were in rows, and that is the meaning of that word, so to soft, rows, joined tightly together. So Allah tells us in the first 4 to 5 ayahs of Surah As-Saff, that which He doesn't like, that makes Him angry, and that which He loves. Inna Allaha yuhibbu alladhina yuqatiluna fi sabilihi saffan ka'annahum bunyanun marsus. One of the hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he talks about the conditions of the Muslims. In this particular hadith that is muttafaq alayh, is both in Bukhari and Muslim, and in other books of the Sahih Sittah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that there will be a time when the Muslims will be few in number, but in the land, throughout the land, they would hold considerable power and influence. And then he said, a time will come when the Muslims will be as numerous as a froth upon the water, upon the wave. You go to the beach and you see the waves when they come in, and that white foam that looks like on the top, that they will be numerous like that and have no power. So we celebrated the Eid yesterday. How many of us thought about the Muslims who are in Palestine? About the Rohingyas, the Muslims who are in Burma? By the latest statistics, 5.5 billion people in the world, 1/5 of that is Muslim. In some way or fashion or another, they call themselves Muslim. 1 billion of us, and yet we can't stop what is happening to the Muslims in Palestine. And we celebrated the Eid yesterday, as we should have done, in following the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But how many of us thought about our brothers and sisters there? About our brothers and sisters in Burma, the Rohingya, and elsewhere in China, where the government is doing its best to stamp them out. And there's 1 billion of us. What is it? How is it that certain countries can now, in light of what is happening to the Palestinians and other Arabs, Muslims, get away from the aspect of the nationalities to Muslims? If you've seen any of the film clips that I have, Masjid al-Aqsa, Israeli stormtroopers, they call them police, I call them stormtroopers. They broke in, kicking people while they were in sajda, stun grenades inside of the masjid. The film clip of a dead Palestinian and an Israeli soldier stomping him as if he was still alive. And yet, there are Muslim leaders of government who say, oh, we will have normal relations with Israel now. Recognize it diplomatically. There's a long history of how this situation got to be in Palestine. Goes all the way back to 1917 and the ending of World War I, and how those who won it, empire who was on what was called Palestine, was given to England. What became Syria and Lebanon was given to France. What would be Iraq was given to England as well. And this circumstance got worse as time went on. And to finish here, just with this point, in today's world, if a person says that they're anti-Semite, it's like saying that you're anti-Jewish. This is the public relations that the Yahudis, that the Jews have been able to establish. Jews aren't the only Semites in the languages, as is Aramaic and Hebrew. And the Ethiopians who were Jews, the Falasha, are Semites. The Arabs are Semites. So this does not exclusively belong to the aspect of being Jewish. They aren't the only Semites in the world. And you would think, after what happened to them during the course of World War II, there will be some type of decency in their hearts, but not so. And it is not to say that some of the circumstances, as Allah knows best, that sees the conditions in Palestine as we see them, were not self-inflicted. But the fact that not one country within proximity of Israel, where the majority of the population is Muslim, has said anything, not one mumbling word about the condition of what's happening in Palestine. Masjid al-Aqsa, in the Dome of the Rock, two of the most holiest places to Muslims. For us in Islam, where was it that the Prophet ﷺ made his night journey? The Isra and the Miraj. It was to Al-Quds, to Jerusalem, and then he was taken up. Allah is best to know when the suppression will end. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that indeed, if you see something wrong, and you can change it with your hands, change it with your hands. And if you can't do that, to speak out against it. And if you can't do that, to hate the circumstance in your heart, to make dua. But he also said, out of the three, this was the weakest of the expression. And it's not to say that dua, made sincerely, cannot make changes. We all know better than that, individually and collectively. But here, to see the carnage that is taking place, right now in the violence that's taking place in the West Bank and Gaza, right now, for every Jew or Israeli that may have been killed, 8 to 9 Palestinians have died violently, some of them children. Airstrikes, bombardments, outright shootings. So when we look at this, we here cannot become complacent, because pretty much we can practice Islam to the fullest extent that we need to. At least at this stage, not yet have to worry about someone breaking into our homes and telling us to leave. Because this is what in the West Bank and Gaza can happen. Another khutbah perhaps about how and what happened to them. But suffice it to say, at any point in time, a Jew can go into the West Bank and Gaza and other areas and claim that the house that the Palestinian is living in belonged to them at one time, whether they have the proof or not. And the Palestinians will be kicked out of their homes and the home given to that Jew. And this has happened repeatedly. I once, before I came home from Saudi Arabia, watching a documentary explaining this circumstance. The Jews who had been given the homes of Palestinians were Sephardic Jews, meaning Jews born and raised in the Middle East or North Africa. They were from Morocco. The Jews that control Israel are Ashkenazi. They're from Europe. But in this particular instance, the Jewish woman said, "Why don't you Palestinians just get over it and go live somewhere else?" And it just so happened that the house that this Jewish woman was living in, the woman that it had been confiscated from, was on the same program. And said to her, "That house is not yours. My husband and my children were kicked out of our home and it was given to you. And you say, why don't we get over it?" We consciously have to keep in our Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and keep them in our du'as. That Allah gives them sabr, gives them strength, and will grant them victory against what's happening to them. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله وأتوب إليه. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. In that hadith that the Prophet ﷺ talked about, if you can change something with your hands, change it. And if not, speak out against it. If not, in your heart. But here I want to come, that same hadith, to come here in Camden, and Masjid al-Nur. There's not anything wrong with Masjid al-Nur in terms of the brothers and sisters who come here. That's not what I'm talking about when I point to this. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, إن الله يحب الذين يقاتلون في سبيله صفا كأنهم بنيان مرصوص. Comes from the three-root verb qatala, which means to kill. Qatala means to fight. And in here, the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking about the physical aspects. But now to talk about something not physical, but yet again, in Allah yuhibbu alladhina yuqatiluna fi sabilihi. Indeed, Allah loves those who fight His way. So, This has become my home because I'm not from New Jersey. I was born in Kentucky 72.5 years ago. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, He blessed me to marry a sister from here. And Camden, in Masjid al-Noah, where we live in Clemington, but Masjid al-Noah became my home. And the love that I have for the brothers and sisters here, not bragging. Only that which I love more than them is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then there comes him. So here, what needs to be changed? We need more participation. Not only amongst from those who are here, but from those who can hear my voice who are here. We need, and we're not begging, because we only beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we're asking in a way. And why? Because the Prophet ﷺ said, what? Love for your brother what you love for yourself. And asking you to come to that which, if you do, and do it with sincerity, remembering that every action is but by intent. That is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If it's done with sincerity, then we call you to what Allah knows to be a great reward. And what are we calling you to? To come and to support this masjid. On the 18th, there'll be a fundraiser. And it's a simple one. All you have to do is download the app and send this app to your friends, your associates, whatever. For every $1 that's sold in this fundraiser, Masjid al-Noor will get 50 cents of it. And what's beautiful about it? The track team at Camden High did the same fundraiser that we're going to do starting on the 18th. 7 young boys and 2 young girls sold $20,000 worth of popcorn in 4 days. And the amount of money that they got from that was half, $10,000. And when I look at those of us gathered here, after the khutbah, I'll give you the information about the app itself. Some of us here have even eaten the popcorn from the company that we're getting it from and can testify to its quality. It's for 4 days, the 18th through the 22nd. And every $1 that's sold, whatever the amount is, Masjid al-Noor gets half of it. So if you can't come here physically to change some of the things with your hands, cutting the grass, repairing things, so forth and so on, then involve yourself fi sabilillah in the fundraising, remembering that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, Inna Allaha yuhibbu alladhina yuqatiluna fi sabilihi. Because this is a way for fighting in his cause, for this masjid, for this jama'ah, in these buildings to remain Masjid al-Noor and the legacy that it has established in Camden. It's as simple as that. And again, as a reminder, that Allah says, none will approach him on Yom Qiyamah except those who have pure hearts. How do we gain pure hearts? as the Sahaba understood, amal as-salih, righteous deeds, with the intent being for that to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the gist of things, what could be more rewarding than doing something that can be done from your home, not really having to make an effort except downloading the app and sending it to your friends. The app, it will say construction for Masjid al-Nur. Just that simple. Just that simple. And just when you start to do it with Bismillah. Because in doing that, you never know the reward that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give. If we talk about jihad, as I was taught in school, there are many types of jihad. In this struggle to maintain the masjid, to have it be a place at any time you can come and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without fear of being stomped on, without fear of being kicked and put out and beaten. If for no other reason than that, then we ask you, not beg, we ask you to become involved in this fundraising, fi sabilillah. Because in doing that, the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if it's done that way, you cannot imagine what the reward could be. As Allah knows best, the action could be that puts you in a position, although you wouldn't know it, we wouldn't know it, as the Sahaba didn't know it when they said, if we knew that Allah accepted one idol of what we had done. And as Sheikh Salih Al-Fawzan said, it wasn't pride or arrogance that they said was out there fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and their love for him at the same time. So here we are. Ramadan has come and gone. So what will the next year be? Will it be a return to that which you were doing before this Ramadan came? Or will it be us paying attention to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran? إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الَّذِينَ يُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِهِ صَفًّا كَأَنَّهُم بُنْيَانٌ مَرْصُوصٌ رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً فِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ رَبَّنَا لَا تُؤَاخِذْنَا إِن نَّسِينَا أَوْ أَخْطَأْنَا رَبَّنَا وَلَا تَحْمِلْ عَلَيْنَا إِصْرًا كَمَا حَمَلَهُ الَّذِينَ مِن قَبْلِنَا رَبَّنَا وَلَا تُحَمِّلْنَا مَا لَا طَاقَةَ لَنَا بِهِ وَاعْفُ عَنَّا وَاغْفِرْ لَنَا وَارْحَمْنَا وَأَنتَ مَوْلَانَا فَانصُرْنَا عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ أقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح